we go over to Julie. She's actually flown back all the way from Georgia. Georgia has been East Europe, not Georgia, America. So she has a nice place that you can always go and visit and stay with her. She has, she's a very good cook, so is her French husband. So she has this beautiful lodge, what do you call that? Guest house. So you can stay, have breakfast, or if you want her to cook a Malaysian meal, she can still do that if you visit. Yeah. And she's got a beautiful garden, so everything is organic. Okay, so Julie, I used to subscribe to Flavours, a magazine since you were its editor at the Star newspaper. Tell us more about your writing career and how, as a food writer, you can balance tradition and modernity. You know, things that you learn from your grandmother, you can't do that all the time. Now you have to maybe, with new tools, new apparatus, or new things that have come into the market that would maybe enhance it, maybe not have changed a little bit. So let's hear what Julie has to say. And in her two books, in her two Peranakan cookbooks, she actually included a little bit of history, which these two books she actually co-authored and edited. That is very meaningful when you have a story behind a lot of things. What were your challenges as a Nyonya? Secret out, she's not a Nyonya. Okay? But she writes on cuisine of two different Peranakan communities. That is Penang Nyonya and Malacca Chitty. She's got a book here. And recipes of some forgotten dishes. Of your writing and sell your books, please. Oh, we've got books here from all these three writers. After the talk, they will sell it and they will sign it for you. Okay? Okay, Julie.
Good afternoon, everyone. Is it okay?
It's on.
It's on me, yeah.
Okay. No sound. On.
Can you?
Never mind, we have this one. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Lily, for the introduction, and congratulations to him for your soon-to-be published novel. We're all waiting for that. Yeah. And really, thank you for rating Nyonya Flavours as the best next Peranakan cookbook. And you know what? I absolutely agree with you. I'm biased, of course, but let me tell you why I say that. I actually tasted, of course, every dish that is in the book, and I can tell you that all the dishes are really good. Yeah, and I just love Nyonya food, and that's why I'm passionate about telling Baba Nyonya stories. Yeah. So I tell Baba Nyonya, or like Lily likes to call it, Nyonya Baba stories, because the culture resonates with me. I feel more connected to this land I was born in through the Peranakan culture more than the purely Chinese culture. I think I'm not so different from some of you here. You know, I'm a person of Chinese descent, living in a Malay world. So I'm very much like you guys. So I think it's only natural, logical, and inevitable that, and also politically correct, for me to absorb and cultivate some of the local values and tastes. So I studied English and philosophy at the National University of Singapore and worked as an editor for several magazines in Singapore before coming back to join the Star newspaper. I worked through the various desks of the Star, the news desk, the retro desk, the business desk, And finally, the features desk. Before I was offered the editor post of a food magazine, which was newly acquired by the company. And I was the editor of that magazine for 15 years before I went back to the newspaper. And while writing food stories, I realized that there were hardly any stories about Malaysian food history. So it's actually quite strange, with a nation that loves food so much, we eat and talk about food all the time, but we actually don't know much about the history of our food. For example, how did laksa came about? We have several theories, but none of them are conclusive. But laksa is actually a symbol of our hybrid culture and centuries of migration, marriage, and culinary exchange between Chinese and the Malay world since the 15th century. What about nasi lemak, our de facto national dish? Again, there's no convincing origin story, but someone actually invented a silly story about a girl who accidentally spilled coconut milk while cooking rice, and when her mother tasted the rice and asked her about it, she said defensively, "Nasi lah, mak." So it's how nasi lemak became about. So this story is so ludicrous that I don't know to laugh or cry, and yet it's repeated all over the internet. Someone picked up the story and everyone just followed without actually checking whether it's true. So you asked about writing about traditional stories. So as a food magazine and newspaper, we wrote on all aspects of food. We don't have an issue with upholding traditions. So naturally, readers always want to know the latest news, the latest food trends, and where to find the best dish, what are the new restaurants. But during festive season, it's always nice to run a story about tradition, so often like during Chinese New Year, you will find us writing about traditional food. So it's all about timing and what's appropriate and what we think readers want to read and the stories that will actually sell copies, right? So being a non-peranakan, so I'm going to talk about the collaborative way of writing. So I often collaborate with others to tell stories. For example, the first Nyonya cookbook I did, Nyonya Flavours, was a collaboration between my company, The Star, and the Penang Straits Chinese Association. And the Malacca Chatty Kitchen was a collaboration between the authors and the Malacca Chatty Heritage Association Malaysia. Often people have stories to tell but do not know how to tell it and how to publish a book. Producing a cookbook especially needs a specific set of skills, not just in compiling and writing the stories and recipes, but also the photography and food styling and recipe testing. You also need to understand book layout, graphic design, and printing. So I'm a bit of a one-stop center from writing to producing and publishing a book. So that comes from working in fairly it's a not so big publishing company when I was in Singapore, where I have to see to the whole process, from the writing to the production of the book. For the first book, Nyonya Flavours. So people often credit me for Nyonya Flavours, but it's really a collaborative work. Many people contributed to the book. The recipes were from members of the association. When I received the recipes from the association, I realized that it was not a complete collection of Penang Nyonya food. So I invited two good Nyonya chefs that I know, Debbie Teo and Lee Supe. They're all quite famous now, so maybe some of you may know them. And so I invited them to contribute their missing recipes. I also wanted to make sure that all the recipes work, so we engaged Debbie to test all the recipes as well. That's why I could tell you at the beginning that all the recipes in this book are very good. Yeah. So unfortunately, I think the Star have stopped reprinting this book. After printing it for about 6 times, maybe they think it won't sell so much anymore. But I keep having people asking for this book. The good news is that you can still get the digital copy online, and it's actually selling for very cheap, like just 15 ringgit. Yeah. So right now, the only way you can get it is as a digital copy. Yeah. So recipe compilation is really time consuming, and it can be quite a complex process to get a recipe right and done to an international standard. So there are many protocols involved. People often think that if you can cook, you can write a recipe. That's actually not true at all. So there are standards to writing a recipe. If you want to produce a recipe that anyone, anywhere can cook from, it's actually not so easy. So yeah, there really are good recipes and bad recipes. Yeah. Lily mentioned about the Peranakan garden. So that's also a collaboration. So to me, collaboration is a great way to tell a story. So one has something interesting to tell, and the other has the skills to tell it and to turn it into a book. So Lily has plenty of interesting story to tell that I am really drawn to. She's always telling me stories, and I said you really need to get it written down, to have a more permanent record of it. Yeah. So we are working together actually this book with David Yew as well. Yeah, so David actually came out with the first draft of the manuscript, and so this concept about a Peranakan garden, I think no one has heard of it. So when they first told me about it, I was actually very skeptical as well. So I said that you better be able to defend yourself if you want to write about a topic like this. So, but after when I went through the manuscript, I saw that it's actually very interesting, and I think there's a way to support it. It may be a conceptual idea, but it's not totally conceptual, because it's actually really want to do this book actually to honor her grandfather, who is a great gardener. So I told her that if you want to say there's such a thing as the Peranakan garden, there must be actually quite a lot of people doing it. So unfortunately, we don't have many pictures, to show this Peranakan garden. But after actually digging a little bit into history, I find that where this might come from. So we won't let the cat out of the bag, but just to say that a lot of it actually has to do. It started in our colonial period, so actually the British has quite a bit to do with this. So sometimes as an outsider, I see things in a different way, right? Because I'm curious, I want to know about things. I ask a lot of questions, and so I get a lot of answers. Because I want to reach an interesting story with depth, I also do a lot of research into the topic I'm writing on. A story often grows and reveals itself in the telling. Sometimes when I start writing a story, I really don't know what I'm going to write about. But when you start writing, it's in a way it's like the story is writing itself, right? Yeah. So it's not a problem writing Peranakan stories. It's not a problem writing any stories. This is the kind of thing that writers thrive on. We like certain challenges. And I find it very interesting to uncover new facts and hidden or forgotten recipes. So it can be an advantage not being Peranakan than writing Peranakan stories. So it really depends on how you look at it. So for the other book that we did, which was published just more than a year ago, the Malacca Chatty Kitchen. So about 5 years ago, Dr. David Neo and I decided on the Indian Peranakan cookbook. Because very little is known about the Malacca Chatties and their food, we were curious to find out how different or the same their food is from the other Peranakan communities. They are the smallest Peranakan community and fast disappearing. So we worked with a small group of Malacca Chatties with 4 main recipe contributors, Nancy, who is actually here, Dana, Santa Chiti and Indrani Pillai. We didn't want to produce just a recipe book, but to tell their stories through food. To understand what their cuisine is all about, I first asked that they list all the dishes that they consider Malacca Chatty. Coming up with a list and finalizing the list was not easy. We thought that would be the easiest thing to do, but it wasn't, because we keep debating over the list, what to include, what not to include. We can't include anything. We can't include everything because of space constraints, and also because there are many overlapping dishes with Indian, Malay, and Peranakan Chinese dishes. Sometimes we felt that because some of these recipes are quite well known, maybe we should not include them. But they are actually dishes that the Malacca Chatties cook every day as well. So I think it's really interesting to see how their food is the same or different from the other communities. So we try to include as many as possible. So doing that, it was like putting together a jigsaw puzzle. Before that, we couldn't see the big picture, but after we got the list done, the list helps to open the door to better understanding of their food culture. With this list, we could analyze and categorize the cuisine. For a tiny community, they have an amazing number of recipes that are rich, nuanced, and varied. We managed to retrieve some forgotten recipes and record them. I did not try to standardize or modernize their recipes, but record them as they were given to me to capture a slice of their life at this given moment in time. I also had the chance to taste all the recipes, and I can tell you that they have some fabulous dishes as well, and methodical and precise cooking methods. You would think that for such a small community, the methods of cooking won't be very precise, but they are really particular, not as particular as the Chinese Peranakan about how they cut, the shape and texture, and even they are also very particular with flavor, how to pair the flavors. For example, this dish should be eaten with that. So listening to them, I was really quite surprised, that they are actually very sophisticated. But when you go to the Malacca Chatty house in Malacca, for example, you see that the house is so simple, so small, and yet their cuisine is so sophisticated. So I think you can derive, get some idea of actually how rich and complex this culture is. So we are talking about a culture that's over 600 years old, right? Many things could have changed, right? So as you know, like Malacca in the past was such a hub and a big culture. it was likened to Venice, right? But when you look at Malacca today, you wouldn't think that, right? So I think probably the same can be said of the Malacca Chetty food. You know, in the past, they were actually quite important and rich. So just now we talked about not knowing the origins of nasi lemak. So in doing this book, I discovered that the Malacca Chetties have been cooking nasi lemak using a double steam method for as long as anybody can remember. So nasi lemak is in fact woven into the very fabric of their culture. It is at the core of their most important spiritual event, the Pacu Bogi ancestor worship, so much so that it is sometimes called Pacu Nasi Lemak. So if you are a Nasi Lemak lover, please make sure you grab a copy of this book while you can, because the Nasi Lemak is truly fragrant and delicious. Yeah. So you may be asking, what has recipes to do with storytelling? I don't know if you have heard of this. They say, tell me what you eat and I will tell you who you are. So this is the famous quote from Priya Savaran, who wrote the foundation book on gastronomy and food philosophy called The Physiology of Taste 200 years ago in 1825. This quote underlines the profound connection between food, identity, culture, and class in human societies. So food is such a big part of who we are. The first thing that Lily greeted you with is Japaway instead of Luhogo. Japaway is have you eaten? That's how Peranakan and Chinese people greet each other. So that tells you that food is a very big thing in the culture. So even if you don't know who the Peranakans are, you can actually just look at the food and soon you will be able to form an idea of who they might be. I'll just randomly name like a few dishes like gulai ke, or you may call it curry ke. So the word gulai or curry means curry, and ke is chicken, right? Siam bihun means or mi siam, nasi ulam, pengat. So just from the name alone, you can already guess, right? So the name gulai ke is a combination of Malay word gulai and ke is a Chinese word for chicken. So that already shows you the marriage of two different cultures. So just by the name alone, so the dish mi siam, so you will know that it's some Siamese. Siamese means it's the old name for Thailand, right? So you can see that there is Thai influence in their food. So just by the name, you can get a bit of the story. Nasi ulam, of course, is a Malay name. So this dish probably has a lot of Malay influence. The same with pengat, which is actually a dessert of sweet potato, coconut milk, and taro. So actually just looking at recipes, so we can unpack recipes to find out more. So if you want to go further, you can look at the ingredients. So can the ingredients used in the dish tells you about the cook? Maybe yes and maybe no. So but let's break it down together. For example, gulai ke, you have chicken. Can that tell you about the culture? You can't really, because everybody use chicken, but what it will tell you is that the Peranakan, they are not vegetarians if they are eating chicken. Chili, well, chili tells you that either Malay and Indian in influence. Turmeric, also Malay and Indian. Coconut that they are probably in a tropical region where you can find a lot of coconut trees, small onions, maybe not salt, no, because everybody use salt. So just with the recipe, if you investigate the recipe, you can actually arrive at the culture. After looking at the name, looking at the ingredients, if you want, you can look at the methods of cooking. If the dish is steamed, you will guess that it has Chinese influence, right? So boiling would be Malay, yeah. So the point I want to make here is that you can know a lot about the culture, values, and identity of a people by looking at what they eat, right? So as Riyadh Savarin said 200 years ago, yeah, you can tell about the people through what they eat. So now, when you look at the young peranakan and what they eat, you're going to get a very different picture. If you ask a young peranakan what they are eating, they might tell you something like, for breakfast I had egg McMuffin and a latte. For lunch, tonkatsu ramen. For dinner, bak kut teh. So you can imagine Riyadh Savaran's dilemma if he tries to decipher what the young Peranakan's culture is by his eating habits. So with global culture, changing influences, and much faster moving trends, not to mention our health crisis, it has become even more critical to preserve our culture. I have been told by my other half as a French chef that it's very important for us to codify our food. So what he meant by that, to codify a book is just to record your recipe in a more accurate and systematic way so that they will not be lost and anybody will be able to reproduce the recipe. We have done that for the Malacca Chetty community, writing the recipes in a way that anyone can cook from and telling the stories behind each dish. I'm a great believer that you must put the dish in its proper context for people to be able to understand and truly enjoy it and to celebrate it. Recipes do not exist in a vacuum. It exists within a cultural and social and even political and environmental context. So if you don't know the story, you actually don't know the dish. So storytelling is a work in progress. It begins when we learn to speak and ends when we die. But someone else can pick up where we left off and continue the story. And that's the beauty of storytelling. You may think that your story is not worth telling, but somewhere across time, the discovery of your story may be a revelation and be the catalyst to change the course of history. Storytelling isn't just entertainment, it's actually what makes us human. Stories celebrate and honor lives, is a fundamental expression of life, and is what connects us. Sharing stories connects us socially, emotionally, and intellectually. Stories also connect us across time and space. Think of each individual story as a chain link in a massive web. We are all interconnected to each other one way or another by hundreds, thousands, and millions of little story links. So keep on telling stories. Telling Baba Nyonya stories keeps the community relevant, fresh, and alive. When you stop telling stories, you are forgotten. Keep publishing new cookbooks. Never mind if the recipes are not new. The book is new, so it's another chance to blow your trumpet and celebrate your culture. Thank you.